All right, today we're going to hack your brain. We're going to look at how the latest science can help you finally ditch those old, frustrating study habits and actually make information stick. It's time to start working with your brain, not against it. You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. You spend hours rereading a chapter, highlighting everything in sight, only to realize an hour later, it's all gone. Total blank. It's one of the most frustrating things ever. But here's the thing. What if the problem isn't you? What if it's the methods you've been using all along? So here's our game plan. First, we're going to expose the passive learning trap. Then we'll build your active learning toolkit. After that, we dive into the cool stuff, how you can actually rewire your brain, the chemistry that makes it all happen, and the single biggest thing that gets in the way, stress. We'll wrap it all up with a simple idea. Learn smarter, not harder. Okay, let's jump right in. First up, the passive learning trap. It's time to break down why those study methods you've probably relied on your whole life are actually holding you back. So most of us fall into this passive review column. Rereading, highlighting, it feels productive, doesn't it? But really, it's like just letting information wash over you, hoping some of it sticks. Active learning is the total opposite. It's all about pulling information out of your brain. When you force yourself to retrieve a memory, you're building and strengthening the pathways to that knowledge. So, how do we actually get active? Well, let's build your new toolkit. We're going to focus on two incredibly powerful, science-backed techniques that will completely change your study sessions. The first, and honestly, the most powerful tool is active recall. It's simple. Instead of just rereading your notes, you actively try to pull the information from your memory. Think of it like a bicep curl for your brain cells. Every time you force yourself to remember something without looking, you make that neural connection stronger, tougher, and way more permanent. Our second tool is called interleaving. Now, most people study in blocks, 3 hours of just math. Interleaving means you switch between different topics. So maybe 30 minutes of math, then 30 minutes of physics, then you switch back to math. Why on earth would this work? Because every time you switch back, your brain has to work harder to retrieve that information from long-term memory. It deepens your understanding and makes you a much better problem solver. So, what does this look like in the real world? Well, here are a few great methods. Flashcards are a classic for a reason. They're pure active recall. Then there's something called blurting. You just grab a blank page and write down everything you can remember on a topic as fast as you can. Practice questions, obviously. And a personal favorite, the Feynman technique. Try to teach the concept to somebody else. You find out real quick what you don't understand. Now for the really cool part. What is actually happening inside your skull when you do all this? Let's get into the neuroscience of literally rewiring your brain. Get this. Every single time you learn something new, you are physically changing your brain. This incredible power is called neuroplasticity. Your brain isn't some static computer chip. It's a dynamic, living network that's constantly rebuilding and reorganizing itself based on your experiences. And active learning, it just puts that whole process into hyperdrive. But you could do all that hard work during the day, and it could all be for nothing without this next part, sleep. Sleep isn't just downtime. It's when your brain gets to work, filing away and consolidating everything you just learned. Honestly, taking sleep seriously is one of the biggest learning hacks there is. Here's how it works. When you learn something new, it gets temporarily stored in the hippocampus. Think of it as your brain's inbox. Then, while you're in deep sleep, your brain acts like a librarian, taking that new info and carefully filing it away in the cortex for permanent long-term storage. If you skip the sleep, the memories stay in the inbox, where they're fragile and easily deleted. So, beyond the physical structure, your brain also runs on chemistry. Let's look at how two key ingredients, novelty and dopamine, can absolutely supercharge your learning. The formula is actually pretty simple. When your brain sees something new or interesting, it releases a chemical called dopamine. This is often called the reward chemical, and it basically acts like a big, bright save button for your memories. It tells your brain, hey, pay attention, this is important. That chemical boost literally makes learning faster. So shaking up your routine or studying in a new place isn't just for fun, it's a real learning strategy. Novelty directly activates those dopamine neurons, which speeds up the whole learning process and seriously enhances how well you remember things down the line. But there is a powerful force that can shut this entire amazing system down. We have to talk about the single biggest obstacle to learning, stress, and why your emotional state is everything. This quote from neuroscientist Antonio Damasio says it all. We like to pretend we're logical thinking machines, but the reality is our emotions and our thoughts are completely inseparable. Your ability to pay attention, to learn, to remember, it's all profoundly affected by how you feel. Put simply, your brain cannot learn effectively if it doesn't feel safe. Now, not all stress is bad. A little pressure from a deadline can be motivating, but we're talking about toxic stress. This is that long-term chronic stress or those sudden, huge spikes of anxiety that just become destructive. It messes with your brain's ability to regulate itself, and when that happens, learning becomes pretty much impossible. When your brain feels threatened, it can trigger what's called an amygdala hijack. Basically, your emotional, survival-oriented brain takes over and puts you in fight or flight mode. And when it does that, it shuts down your prefrontal cortex, the part you use for rational thought. When you're in survival mode, there's just no bandwidth left for learning. So let's bring all of this home. What's the one core message you should walk away with today? It's really simple. You've got to learn smarter, not harder. The key takeaway is this: effective learning is not about brute force. It's not about the number of hours you cram in. It's about strategy. It's about understanding the machine you're working with. When you use techniques like active recall, when you prioritize sleep, when you manage your stress, you're aligning your methods with your brain's actual biology, and that is where the magic of real, lasting learning happens. The science is crystal clear. Your brain has this incredible built-in capacity to learn, adapt, and grow. It's ready for this new, more effective way of working. The only question left is, are you ready to let it? Now go put these ideas to the test.